Thanks to whoever assigned me this slide. I don't know much about picking strawberries, but I assume that's what's happening in that picture. I never would have selected this slide for myself, but when I think about leadership in terms of whatever is happening right there, I think to myself, I've been to lots of keynotes and conferences like you all have, and a lot of times we'll see this slide that a presenter will show, and it's of the desks in rows and saying, we've got to stop doing that. And every time I'm at that conference, I think we have stopped doing that. I mean, kids are not doing that in elementary schools I've been to in Minnesota. Things have evolved, but there's this other thing happening that's less obvious, less evident than desks, and just developing and how leaders develop the talent within their organizations. We've moved from engagement being the ultimate goal to having empowered employees and kids being one of the ultimate goals. So that's a dirty old car, and when I see that car in a leadership, from a leadership standpoint, I think of some mistakes I've made in my past, and I feel like I've shared this maybe a couple times before with friends in MESPA, but several years ago, one of my big things was we have got to innovate to serve our kids better than we have served our kids. We have so many tools and different ideas at our disposal, but the problem was when I was looking at people, it was kind of as if they were not innovating, I was maybe seeing a rusty old car, if that makes any sense. And obviously it was a little more gracious than that, but really my evolution as a leader now is to always, and this is through a process of hard failure and me hurting people that I did not want to hurt, but shining it up and seeing beneath the things that I want or think or expect that I should see. Instead of seeing a resistor on staff, I'm seeing someone who is loved, who has invested their entire career in this work, and maybe not feeling as valued as they should by me. And the moment I made that mental switch, instead of just putting the pedal to the metal for innovation, just that human connection being the priority, it is amazing to have seen and been part of the ride on where we've gone as a staff now, just with the little switch of people feeling valued. So how does that happen? From a leadership standpoint, I'm just thinking about the immense amount of scaffolding that we have to provide for it. And the tricky part is we can put systems in place for a school, whether it's the multi-tiered system of support for kids, but we know that the same scaffolding will not work for every single person that we serve. It really has to be personalized, and the only way to personalize it is to know the person. The only way to personalize it is to know the person, and that's a daily discipline. Okay, I don't know what that is. Is that a geyser? Okay, I see it. Oh, thank you. So thanks, Joe. A little quicker next time. Don't have all day here. But so when I just the nature of this whole question and random slide is I know on my journey there are so many times where I don't know what to do, and the more that I'm okay with not knowing what to do, where I can call colleagues like Karen and Sarah Beth and Sam and Carla and just say, hey, can you help me out with this? And they're probably nodding their heads and saying, maybe stop calling Brad, it's getting a little much. The point being, when you experience your geyser moments as a principal, don't ever hold back making that call, because when we have our people, we're better together. That's the mystery slide, huh? I think I'll just toast to you and our colleagues because we are in this together and we are better together. So recently, I was out doing bus duty in the morning, and a little kindergartner was walking in, and I saw something taped or pinned to her jacket. It looked peculiar. And I read it closely, and it said, please get so-and-so on this bus at the end of the night. And I thought, that's a little unconventional. Usually we'll get an email or phone call or a note or something, but that works. But here's the funny thing. I flash back. My mom was a teacher, single parent, worked very hard when I was growing up. And there was a time, 6th grade or so, where I had a trumpet lesson across town, and Mom had summer school or something. She just couldn't get me there. So she set me out on my bike, a few years later than that, but that's 1980s Brad, just a little bit later than that. And I was very excited to be on my bike. I had a trumpet. Now that I think about it, I had a trumpet. I can't believe my mom did that to me. But she, in addition to sending me with $1 so I could get a Gatorade, kind of bribe money on the ride to the gas station, she also put a note on me. And that's why I thought of it when I saw that kindergartner at bus duty. I didn't think much of it because I was really focused on the $1 and the Gatorade, right? So I'm cruising in, I get to the gas station, and we did not have mountains behind our gas stations, but it was gas station. I get there, and the clerk just starts laughing at me, like getting my grape Gatorade. I'm like, what? She's reading the sign that my mom had taped on me or pinned on me, and it said, "If hit, please call," and my mom's name and number. And back then, I still didn't, I just had my Gatorade, and that's all I cared about. Now, as an adult, I'm thinking, how about 911, Mom, right? But the point is, and there really is a point here, that kindergartner and that sixth grader, me, what we had on our chest, the message was irrefutable. It was right there for everyone to see. But often in my leadership life, I'm not as explicit. Obviously, it'd be a little bit weird to walk around with a thing taped to yourself, but how might we convey that? We could get a tattoo, right? So I was thinking about this even last night, like, what is my banner? I know I've had several banners over the years, and they kind of evolve as I change for the longest time, and still now, amplify student voice. It's something I could actually get tattooed and really get behind. But the more I reflect on failure and growth and even amplifying learner voice, I think about this great adventure we're on, trying to get kids towards learning that lasts, not just surface level stuff. It never starts with accountability or content. That's part of the process, but it really does start with relationships. So really quick, in Reclaiming Our Calling, the way that I conceptualize this is this core of the calling, and it starts with the relationships. And everyone in here, like Principal L said, we know this, that we are the choir. But which direction we take those relationships is pivotal to the work. So I'm going to suggest we take a left-hand turn, getting to know our kids, what's relevant to them, not to us, because there is a difference, and then ultimately getting to learning that lasts, or I call it transcendent learning. So what does that look like in our daily walk? Because I hear a lot of people, myself included, talking about relationships, but what does that really look like when we're in a PLC meeting, or when we're talking to kids in the hall, or having to lead difficult initiatives, or kicking off the year in front of a unicorn, or something like that? I mean, this crazy stuff happens, but how does your banner, how does your mantra play out? So here's one super quick example. I hope you can stay with me on the connection here. But we have some really incredible teachers in our school who, in every single grade level, that they have a banner, and I could tell you what their banner is, individually and as teams. But we have several who are invested in questioning practices that really need to be questioned, like reading logs. Who are they for? What's the purpose? Are we trying to foster a love of literacy with accountability? And if we are, we might be missing something there, because connection is what ignites learning. So I'm going to do some quick book talks in just Stephen Geis has inspired me in my life. So Stephen, thanks for passing the torch a teeny bit and letting me do this instead of you this year. But super quick. So what if I'm trying to lead with relationships, what if this is going to be for your staff who love creating and instilling creating in kids? It's a story of a kiddo who pencil's taken away, and the kiddo finds a way to create. And then the next thing's taken away, and regardless of what the student loses, they always create, because that comes from within. Grenade is by Alan Gratz, and if you're looking for yourself to dive into children's books, similar to how our Keynote Wednesday talked about the importance of that, Alan Gratz writes in a style where you won't want to stop, because each chapter ends on a cliffhanger. The good thing is, as an adult, if I don't want to stop, I know when I hand that to a kid or even a reluctant reader, they will fall in love. There's a very good chance they'll fall in love with his books. He wrote Refugee as well. Geekarella is my guilty pleasure. My dad was a Star Trek fan. He's no longer with me, but I have no shame in telling you that that's a cross between Cinderella and kind of a sci-fi world, so I'd recommend that book to everyone in here. And then as you're connecting with your kids and staff when you go back to the building, don't hesitate to recommend that to boys and girls. R.I.P. Eliza Hart goes with the theme of the conference. When I read that book, it's a young adult novel, there's a lot of mental illness that goes throughout, and I found myself subconsciously slipping into trying to identify who's the good person, who's the bad person, just based on their struggles and how they were behaving, and how wrong I was, because each of the characters I learned was incredibly complicated, and there is no good or bad person with mental health. We all are on this journey, so I'd really recommend you read that just for empathy building purposes. And then the bottom two, kind of like Wine and Cheese, or I'm going back to an 80s movie again, I think, Ratatouille, the cartoon, but you know how they always pair food? Those books should only be sold together because they're incredibly good. And if you read Wish Tree first and then Mason Buttle, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's incredible. So those are the quick book talks. But here again is the purpose. When we talk about what's your banner, so one of my big things is it always starts with relationships. Does reading start with relationships? Does math start with the power of connection and that heart power? Because if it's not, we're not going to be leading for everyone. We're going to be leading for accountability and content, and that's just the wrong order. So I would encourage you not only to identify and reflect on your banner and to lead with it, but here's the most powerful thing, to figure out and to know deeply the people you serve and what their banner is, because that's how you build school culture, when your people feel like you see them, you know them, and you're willing to champion their banner and not just ask them to champion yours. Thank you.